ownership that we haven't seen. We talk about 49% foreign ownership, and I'm trying to understand the justification for that type of ownership. So basically, there's too much in the dark, and anything that operates in the dark is never good. As a nation and as leaders of a nation, you tell your people, this is my vision, and they say we like it or we don't like it. We selected a democratic system. We also have a situation where we say, well, government is, over the last 2 decades, the Nigerian government says, government is not good at business, so we get out of business. So we got out of telecommunications, we got getting out of power. But then we say we're getting out of everything else, but we're getting into aviation. We call it 5%, but it doesn't look like 5%. There's too much darkness where there should be light. So while we all aspire to have a national carrier, what do we have in Nigeria today? We have several successful airlines. In the last year alone, one airline has signed a big deal of $2.3 billion. Another airline has signed $1.2 billion. Billions of dollars of obligations are being entered into by Nigerian airlines. One airline has filed for 15 new airplanes. Another signed for 5 new airplanes. Ibome is doing great. We're seeing wonderful, reliable service. And then we say, okay, let us float the national carrier. Then we go look, what is the business case they say they want for this national carrier? It says, oh, we will compete with the domestic airlines. We will take the choicest international airlines. And I have to ask myself, what is the government actually trying to achieve? Are they trying to grow the sector or destroy it? And for me, it is not clear enough to take a real position as to whether it's a good idea now or not. But everything I see tells me it's a very bad idea.
Now, sir, what is really not clear to you about the equity shares? 5% for government, 46, 49 for Nigerians and for...
It is very clear to me, but I don't see it. It's one thing to say something, it's quite another thing to actually see it. If you say we are getting 49 Nigerians, 49% for Nigerians, and you're saying you're offering it to the stock market, 49% Nigerians, and it's going to be a clear and transparent process, I will say yes, it's a good idea. Nigerians, put it on the stock exchange. Let every Nigerian, if you have 1 naira, buy 1 share so that you own a piece of Air Nigeria. And then you have the 49% foreign ownership. What is it actually bringing to the table? Is it money? The money we want can be found on the stock exchange. If you put it on the market, look, when we had MMM, billions of naira was thrown into garbage. We've had a lot of these funny schemes for investments that Nigerians have put billions and billions. So it's not a lack of money to get this airline operational. It's just a way we've started to do things that we continue to do, which I don't see beneficial to the Nigerian people. If we want a national carrier, we want one that is beneficial. We want one we can be proud of. I don't want a national carrier that is owned by Lufthansa. It's not a Nigerian air. It's not a Nigerian national carrier.
Okay, sir, let's put the equity shares aside.
Yes.
Do you think April 2022 date for takeoff is feasible?
Yes, any date. If they want to start next week, they can. They're the government. They'll give themselves an AOC. They give themselves an ATL. They give themselves everything required to get the airline operational. They're the government. They grant all the permissions.
But do you think, not following the process as outlined, the rigorous process of getting AOC, getting ATL, because they're the government?
But I just said they'll get it. They're the government. They'll give it to themselves. Period. So they can set any date. So your question as to whether April 22nd is viable, it is viable. The government will do what it wants to do to get it. Whether they follow the protocols or not is another story. So yes, they will get the date that they want. They pick that date, that will work. That will be the date that works for them. Except that in 2018 they said we'll have the airline up by such and such a date. It didn't happen. So there's still a possibility that that will not happen. But from the standpoint of that, can it happen? Yes, it can happen.
Okay, I was about to say, what's the ideal national carrier? You talked about the fact that Nigerians really do want, we take them everywhere they want to go, cheaper, but what should be the ideal way for them if perhaps something clicks in their minds or their brains to do the right thing?
Okay, what do we really want? We want to fly. We don't care who owns the airline. We want to fly. We want to get to places that we're not getting into. So the first thing we need to do is understand and categorize the market. There's other discussions going on about the role that general aviation plays to smaller airports within the economy. If I was the minister today, my idea would be to create a broad vision for aviation that says there are smaller airports that are not serviced. What are the strategies we need to put in place to bring services to those airports? Smaller airplanes, 19-seater, 6-seater, etc. And then pursue what the government's philosophy is. Encourage the private sector to get into those businesses. How do you encourage the private sector? For one, the Nigerian government has what is called the capacity to raise sovereign debt. at very low rates of interest. So I have always advocated that the government should go out and use its sovereign debt at 1 or 2% and lease, buy airplanes and finance them at 1 or 2% and provide them to the private sector to operate. If you want to operate an airline, you take a cheap airplane, provide service to the areas categorized and defined for you by government, and provide those services at a low cost. It is the low cost of borrowing which the government can pass on from its sovereign debt to the private sector that will provide funding that lowers the cost of operation. So the private sector will be the driver of that. We have Air Peace expanding its operation. Why not target a flag carrier and give it certain markets to go to? IBOM is doing excellent in the domestic market. Why not support them by providing capital and access to capital markets and low-cost funding to expand that operation? You have Dana that needs to modernize its fleet. Support them to do that. If we support the private sector, we will have the aviation we want. We will designate some flag carriers. We can even designate 5 as flag carriers and give them different regions of the world to operate in. But to bring one airline in and say it is now the national carrier and it is going to compete with the rest of the market is a destabilizing process.
Okay, sir. Since this administration came in, they came up with a development roadmap.
Yes.
Stakeholders seem not to be comfortable with the roadmap. The concession came, they quarreled with it. The national carrier is here, they are quarreling with it. Is it that we don't want this roadmap to succeed? Is it that we don't want a national carrier?
We want.
Why are we against all these plans in place to boost activities in the industry?
We are not against anything as citizens. If you listen carefully, the issue is transparency. How can we understand what's going on, not find ourselves at the end of the game and we don't understand? So who are these phantom investors? You know, we can say there are 10 foreign investors coming into the market. Who are they? What is their pedigree? What do they bring to the market? Do they bring capital? Do they bring equipment? What exactly are they doing? These things are all phantom-like. The reality is, if we created a transparent process that Nigerians can trust, we all want a better society.
So the bottom line is transparency.
Absolutely.
Be open. Expose everything to us, then we'll know what you're doing.
Let us know. Even this so-called roadmap. Have you seen it? Do you understand it? Have you seen the business case for the national airline? You haven't. Even the other day, I read nobody has even seen it. It doesn't even exist. ICRC gave permission to operate the national carrier on the basis of an OBC that supposedly does not exist. Nobody has seen it. Is that the government of the people? We are the people. We are Nigerians. I'm speaking to this issue purely as a Nigerian. We want to know what our future is. I don't own an airline, so I have no stake in the outcome. But I am a citizen of this country, and I have a stake in its future.
Okay.
I need to take you off my 2021.
Yes.
The aviation sector.
Yes.
Of course, we're bouncing back from a